With customers pinched by inflation, Hasbro CEO regards competitors as more Unilever and General Mills than toy makers. Almost a year and a half after he took over the company, Hasbro CEO Chris Cox, appropriate name, also said he is doubling down on his focus on gaming products and collectibles geared towards adult audiences. All right. Now, this, I think, is actually a smart move. Japan figured this out a long time ago. So for the longest time, like Japanese quote unquote toys have been mostly like high quality, expensive things for adult collectors. Whereas American toys, it's like the cheapest stuff imaginable because it's meant for like a 5-year-old to play with. Like you're not going to give a 5-year-old a $70 Figma and tell them, here, play with this. Because like in 5 minutes, they're going to show up with a broken $70 Figma crying and buy me another one. No. Like these American toys have always been made primarily for little children to play with. And they tend to destroy their toys. So they're made as cheap and easily replaceable as possible. They can't do this with their adult toys, but we're going to find out later. Like Clownfish covered this pretty well. Like Hasbro's quality of their adult collectible stuff has been plummeting. So it's actually kind of funny. The prices are going up and up and up, like towards the Japanese levels, but the quality is going down. Whereas the quality of the Japanese collectibles has stayed high. So what would you rather buy? Like a super high quality $70 Figma or some cheap ass, like barely above little kid grade, so-called collectible, like Star Wars figure from Hasbro? Tough choice. So while economists and politicians debate over the potential impact of the economic downturn on Americans, Chris Cox said Monday a large swath of Hasbro's customer base is being pinched pretty hard. So why aren't your actual competitors having the same problem? Everyone else that makes wants, not needs, should be in the same boat as you, right? And yet some people are succeeding. Some companies are succeeding, not yours. Why? Why is yours not succeeding? You should be asking that. Now, if I have a concern for the back half of the year, it's really food inflation continuing unabated, said Cox, the CEO of toymaker Hasbro, during the 51st annual JP Morgan Global Technology Media and Communications Conference. I joke a little bit with our team, but I think it's serious. Our competitor right now is more Unilever and General Mills than it is Mattel or Lego. Instead of looking at Mattel and Lego, you should be looking at Good Smile, potentially. Now, Cox, who previously served as president and head of Hasbro's digital gaming division and Grand Wizards of the Left Coast, was tapped as CEO shortly after his beloved CEO Brian Goldner lost his battle with cancer in late current year -2. Since taking over the Pawtucket-based company known for Mr. Potato Head, not anymore, and the Monopoly board games, Cox has had to contend with a glut of inventory and shrinking sales, while persistent inflation continues to tighten the budgets of American households. How about make products people want? Like, no one's going to want to buy your girl power and latest Disney shit toys. While executives at major retail giants like Walmart have a cautious view on the economic health of consumers, Cox said he thinks of Hasbro's customer base in 2 categories. When you look at the top 20% of discretionary income households, particularly the collector market, that market is staying very buoyant and very healthy, said Cox, who earned $9.4 million in current year -1, 250% increase in compensation compared to current year -2. Oh, man. Well, he's getting paid. But yeah, I'm glad they're finally realizing this. I'm glad. Hey, look, the collector's market, like those people are obsessed. They'll find the money for this stuff. Japan's been catering to them for decades and making bank. Where have you been? Yeah, sadly, though, in order to get them to give you money, you actually have to make good-looking female characters. And you're going to have them in revealing clothing as well. You're not going to be able to get away with that bullshit. Hasbro Pulse, the company's direct-to-consumer business that curates high-end products for the collector market, saw sales increase by 40% first quarter this year. Grand Wizards of the Left Coast, which Cox said tends to have customer base who's older, savvy, and a bit higher income, saw increase by 12%. We think this consumer continued to hold up pretty well despite inflation concerns and macroeconomic headwinds, he said. And like Clownfish pointed out, these are the same people that these guys don't want in their audience. These are the same people that Hasbro has been chasing away and sending Pinkertons after them too. Like, don't forget that. Sending thugs to their houses. But the general consumer continues to get pinched pretty hard by inflation, said Cox, particularly food inflation, and they're having to make trade offs. Dude, they're making trade offs between your cheap garbage and higher quality stuff from Good Smile. These consumers are also losing some Corona Chan support and social programs the government put in place over the last couple of years, said Cox, who described these buyers as very promotionally sensitive and price sensitive until at least the fourth quarter of the year. While speaking to at the investors conference, Cox said Hasbro tends to be more oriented towards collectors and higher income consumers, particularly when it comes to brands like Magic and D&D and Hasbro's other high-end action games. The same people you're trying to drive away, remember that. And actually, the problem here is they probably know what their customers want and would be willing to pay for, but they're not willing to make it because their investors don't like it. So, like all these other companies before them, they're sacrificing customers for investors. And we've got to do right by both sides, said Cox, who explained the company plans to take a pretty aggressive pricing actions and getting ahead of its inventory to begin retail promotion in the second half of the year for ahead of the holidays. Like, what are you going to be advertising like $700 like half naked Tifa statues? I'd love to see what the media and your ESG investors would do to you if you dared to do something smart like that. All right. The comments come about 6 months after Hasbro executives informed investors of its cost-cutting plan, dubbed Blueprints 2.0, which would save a projected 250 million to 300 million annually over the next 3 years. Hasbro's plan focuses on investing in fewer, but its most identifiable brands. In January, the company cut 50% of its workforce after a disappointing holiday shopping season. Oh, it's going to be just as disappointing this year. Because I've said this before. Children are not your target audience when it comes to toys anymore. Current year children want video games. Like they want Roblox money. That's what they want. That's what kids nowadays want. The only people who want toys nowadays are adult collectors. So it's actually a smart idea to pivot to them. But adult collectors don't really care about the Christmas season all that much. Like that's more for children. So you're not going to be able to rely on having like 100% boost around Christmas anymore. Now, Hasbro is also looking to unload its E1 television and film business, which Cox confirmed Monday is still in progress. Some of the segment's products include non-Hasbro related TV series such as reality show Naked and Afraid. I like Naked and Scared better. That's the much superior version. Right now, we spend about 600 to 700 million a year in content investments on businesses like that. I think the biggest pivot between former CEO Brian and is that he was oriented towards entertainment. I'm oriented towards play. Play has been the thing that's driven the brand relationships with consumers. That doesn't mean entertainment won't be a part of our story moving forward. Just that it'll be a right-sized portion, not downsized, right-sized portion of how we think our cash about our cash and how we think about investing. Almost a year and a half after he took over the company, Cox said he is doubling down on his focus on gaming products and collectibles geared towards older audiences. I don't disagree with that. If you look at the 5 super categories we're leaning into, first and foremost, leaning into games, that's our big business, very high growth, very high profitability. If you go inside any homes, I'd be willing to wager if you have kids, they have a number of Hasbro products inside their houses. If you go and think about your own childhood, chances are you start engaging with one of our board games and our preschool items at age 2 or 3, and you've probably continued to engage them. Not really, not anymore. One thing to clarify, when they say leaning into games, they don't mean video games. They mean like D&D and Magic the Gathering and board games, which those could be a profitable market. But not as much as making waifu figures, though. Yeah, that's where the real money is. But they don't got the balls to do that. So just point and laugh as they fail. I mean, Japan's way better anyway. Until we got Western companies that are willing to make like the same caliber of product that Japan does, we there's no way we can compete. Like, as long as the West is full of cucks that say, "Oh, that could never have been made here." Yeah, and that's why you're going to lose. You refuse to make what your customers want. Japan doesn't. Japan gets the money. It's that simple.